So a lot has been, I mean, every offseason we do it, right? And it's because I think part of it is the Niners conversation, but we have the Odell Beckham conversation. Will Odell Beckham Jr. be traded? So let's ask it right now. Andrew Berry, their GM, came out and said, right, that they're not going to trade Odell Beckham. So either of you guys can take it. Should the Browns trade Odell Beckham Jr.?
Grant, you want this one?
Hold on. Why don't you go first? I want to look up his stats real quick.
Okay. I don't think they should trade him. And I think the last few weeks of the season are the exact reason why. They need someone who can go deep. Right now they didn't have that. Higgins was good. Landry was good. The only real issue that OBJ and Baker have is chemistry. I think they really, really need him, though, for the fact they need a vertical threat. They were missing that in the playoff game against the Chiefs, and they're missing that against the Ravens as well. And then just other general games. I think they do need a deep threat. I see the reason with like the chemistry issue or people force it to him or Baker forces it to him. I think it could just be working out kinks. I think they'll be a lot better this year when they do get chemistry. I don't think they should trade him. He makes too much sense for them to have. The only issue is the cap hit of two receivers making a lot. That's the only big issue. But I don't think they should trade him now.
Okay, let me take the other argument here. I think they should trade him. And here's why. I think he's declining. He's going to be 29 next season. He missed 9 games last season. And here are his numbers from the last 3 years, from 2018 to now. He, yards per game, 2018, 87, 2019, 64, 2020, 45. Catch percentage, 2018, 62, 2019, 55, 2020, 53. That's scary to me. Maybe he can bounce back and have a great latter half of his career, or maybe his size and injuries are catching up to him. I would bet on that. And if that's the case, then if you wait a year and try to trade him next year, I don't even know if he's under contract. I have to look at that next. But okay, so then you're losing value and you won't get as much. If you trade him now, you might still be able to get something valuable for him. I would trade him now.
So I think the injury thing is real, right? He had the ankle surgery in New York. He had the hernia surgery last year, and now he has the ACL. So the injury thing is real. My big thing is that I think the Browns are a team that can be a Super Bowl team. They have enough cap room where they can load it all up for next year, their last cheap year of Baker Mayfield, and they can load it up, maybe go sign a Levante David, help their defensive line a little bit, beef it up, hope their secondary is healthy this year, and they can get 16 games out of Denzel Ward because he's a stud. And you have Myles Garrett, a phenomenal offensive line. Baker Mayfield, I mean, if the Niners can make a Super Bowl with Jimmy G, the Rams can make a Super Bowl with Jared Goff, you can absolutely make a Super Bowl with Baker Mayfield because he makes more plays than both of those guys. So all of that. And I think in order to do that, they need Odell Beckham. He's the one wild card offensive weapon that can change the game for the Browns. Nick Chubb is really consistent. He's a really, really, really good player, but he's not a game breaker. I think Jarvis Landry, there's no way Jarvis Landry should be paid $12 million a year. I mean, he runs routes that are between 5 to 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. I don't think he's worth that kind of money, but he's paid a lot of money. He's got great hands. He's a really good player. So I think they need Odell Beckham. I think Grant makes real points, but I think just for the fact that their ceiling is Super Bowl aspirations, and Odell Beckham is a wild card in the sense that it's boom or bust. He could be the guy that puts them over the top. He could also be a guy where they bring him back and him and Baker Mayfield don't have the chemistry figured out and it just doesn't work. So, I mean, in that boom or bust scenario, I'm going to bet on the boom. I'm going to give Odell a chance and just bring him back and see what I can do. Because honestly, Grant, you talk about the value this year. I'm not even sure what his value is this year at this point because he's coming off the ACL.
Mm-hmm. Well, Last Second Sports says trade him for Stephon Gilmore. I'm cool with that. And the thing's like, if they need to draft a wide receiver, that's what they should do. They should spend a first or second round pick on a wide receiver because they do. They need one. And what you said about Jarvis Landry is absolutely true. They should trade him too. I don't know what they're paying him for.
Here's the thing, though. I think the Browns need Odell a lot more than Odell needs the Browns. I think Odell would be better on another team like, say, the Patriots, where he could just take the bulk of the targets. But I still think the Browns he's efficient on the Browns in the sense that they need him to go vertical and, like kind of Vish said, be a wild card player. Because Donovan Peoples-Jones, as pretty solid as he has been, he is not that guy. That's what this offense is missing. If they had him, I think they'd be a whole heck of a lot better. But in that same breath, Odell doesn't really need the Browns because they don't use him as much as a team like the Patriots or the Cardinals or another team that needs a receiver could use him and get more out of him.
And I think the other thing with Odell, I know you're probably checking his cap numbers right now, Grant. I can see you typing there, but
I wanted to see where they pick. I want to see where the Browns.
Yeah, so he's only getting paid $14.5 million next year, which in today's receiver climate for the type of player Odell Beckham has shown he's been in other years in his career, even if it was 2 or 3 years ago, that's a huge bargain. Amari Cooper makes $20 million, and Odell Beckham, when he's right, is way better than Amari Cooper. And Amari Cooper, when he's right, is a top 10 receiver. That just tells you how good Odell Beckham is. So for that reason, I think you've got to take the chance with him. You just got to take the plunge. He's so good enough where, man, and I think Jamal has it right here. You gotta try and get that chemistry right, because if you do, this team can be a Super Bowl team, because they're really, the reality is that they've got Myles Garrett, they've got an elite offensive line. Like, the reality is that the Browns are maybe a linebacker and a healthy secondary and a very good Odell Beckham away from being the team in the AFC next year.
I just don't understand why his numbers are falling off a cliff. Like, that doesn't scare you?
Into a new offense, I think that has something to play with it. I mean, he played on a Freddie Kitchens team, and I think we all saw the disaster that experiment.
Yeah, but then his numbers got worse the next year. What's that about?
Well, he was injured.
But in the 7 games that he played, his catch percentage was 50.
Yeah, so Baker started off slow in the offense. That's part of it. And 2, I think before Odell got hurt, they played those 3 string of games where nobody could throw the ball.
Yeah.
They were just running it. I think Baker was throwing the ball like 10 or 15 times because the weather didn't allow them to throw the ball. And so I think for that reason, that hurt his numbers a bit. The chemistry thing is real, right? It's real. You can just see it in how Baker Mayfield's playing. But I think ultimately, again, Blake said it too. He's such a wild card. You got to give him a chance.
But again, like Jarvis Landry, 71% caught 71% of his targets. Rashard Higgins, 71%. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 70%. Austin Hooper, 65%. Like, what is going on with Odell Beckham Jr.? I didn't watch enough, but like, do they just throw him deep? Like, what the hell is that?
No. It's a chemistry.
What the hell is that?
I think it is chemistry for the most part. And he does run more deep routes. Like, yeah, Jarvis Landry is going to catch a lot of balls because he's catching it behind the line of scrimmage, right? But I don't know. I think the chemistry thing is probably the biggest issue. If he were to get traded, I know the Patriots, if they were to trade Gilmore or J.C. Jackson to the Browns, that could be a plausible trade. Because the Browns obviously need corner help, and the Patriots are starting Jacoby Myers as their best weapon. So, check
this out. Odell Beckham Jr., his average depth of target was 13.6 yards downfield. That is far. But Rashard Higgins, his average depth of target was 14.1 yards downfield.
He has great chemistry with Baker. I really think that's because you'd be hard pressed to argue that Rashard Higgins is better than Odell. Like,
I think
he played better than Odell last year.
I think the big thing is,
how does that make sense?
So I think the big thing, Grant, is that when Rashard Higgins started getting his bulk of his targets, their offense, Baker Mayfield was way more comfortable in the offense. Now, the question we need to ask here, was Baker Mayfield more comfortable because he was more comfortable with the offense, or was he more comfortable because Odell Beckham was off the field? And we don't know the answer to that question. Me and Blake say we'll bet on it because we think Baker Mayfield was just more confident and comfortable. I think, Grant, you bring up the point of, well, he's been injured and Baker played great without him, and just draft a receiver to replace him. It's going to be a good topic to see going on.
Beckham seems also like a little bit emotional. Like, if he doesn't get the ball early in a game, he'll pout or get mad. He also seems like the kind of guy who would come into the huddle and be like, yo, throw me the freaking ball. Maybe that's part of the reason why the chemistry isn't great. I don't know. I've never been a big Odell Beckham Jr. fan. I always feel like he's considered like this first ballot Hall of Fame wide receiver, almost like Antonio Brown, but his production hasn't been as consistent as that. He's missed a lot of time. He's never done anything in the playoffs. Excellent athlete, excellent player, but like, I wouldn't call him a first ballot Hall of Famer. If he hadn't made that one catch his rookie year, people wouldn't look at him the same way. He's a lot of hype.
I mean, he was great his rookie year. He had 1,200 yards, like, touchdowns in 12 games. I mean, he was really, really phenomenal.
But he hasn't had a 1,100 yard season since freaking 2016.
Yeah, no, he's definitely not been as good in recent years, but he has shown the talent.